It's not easy being green. Having to spend each day in the color of the leaves, when it could be nicer being red, yellow or gold, something much more colorful like that.
Welcome to GreenTV. My name is Tom Brown. I'm your host for today's show. The St. Joe Valley Greens meet on the second Thursday evening of each month. Our meetings are 7 p.m. in the Malloy Room in the basement of the St. Joseph County Public Library, downtown South Bend. We hope you'll visit us soon. Who do citizens go to with complaints about police behavior? Who has the authority and the power to control the police? Minority groups often complain of disrespectful and abusive treatment by the police. Where can their complaints be heard? Mel de Guzman is an assistant professor at Indiana University at South Bend, where he studies police behavior and community oversight of the police. De Guzman received his PhD in criminal justice in 2001 from the University of Cincinnati. His dissertation was on the integrity, legitimacy, effectiveness, and impact of civilian review boards. Dr. de Guzman lectured at the Philippine National Police College and at the Indiana Police Corps in Plainfield, Indiana. Dr. de Guzman has unique experience with community oversight of the police. He was the secretary of the Senate committee, primarily responsible for writing the legislation which reorganized the Philippine National Police and which strengthened citizens' review of the police there. Typically, police resist citizen control. As Dr. de Guzman says, the police were ready to shoot at us. Please stay tuned for part one of Who Controls the Police, the case for civilian review.
Very pleased to be here with you tonight, and I would say I'm deeply honored to speak in honor of the NAACP, or for the NAACP, and more importantly, it is an honor to speak before the wonderful citizens of South Bend. I see a lot of leaders around. We have Mayor Leakey around, we have the chief. So this would be a very interesting presentation for me to get the message across to you as far as the Civilian Review Board is concerned. Let me start off by outlining my talk for tonight. First, I will provide answers to the questions that were contained in the flyers that were distributed so that I won't be accused of false advertising. The questions in the flyer include what is a Citizen Review Board? What are the advantages, disadvantages of citizen review? What types of citizen review boards are there? Who establishes a citizen review board? Why do we need a citizen review board? And what cities currently have citizen review boards? As I try to answer these questions, I will present some facts and data about civilian review boards, primarily here in the United States, and if necessary, some models from abroad. Second, I will present a synthesis of Citizen Review Board's good practices. I derived some of these information from the research that has been done in the subject, which includes my own. Third, I will provide some suggestions for initiating the establishment of Citizen Review Boards, as well as steps in evaluating Citizen Review Boards' performance. Finally, around 11:30 p.m. tonight, if you're still awake, I will be open to questions and comments. No, I'm just kidding you. I will stick to the 45-minute time limit that is allotted for my presentation. I will entertain any questions that you might have regarding the subject. So first off, what is Citizen Review Board? There's been a lot of controversy regarding citizen reviews, including what these agencies should be called. In the 60s, it was originally called Civilian Review. Other scholars started arguing and said it's not the right name. They started getting picky about the name and decided to waste paper and said that it should be called Citizen Review Board, Civilian Oversight, citizen oversight. The most recent manuscript that I reviewed for publication, that was just 2 weeks ago, spent about 4 pages of paper trying to argue that it should be called a community review board. And I said, too much for the name. I think names are important, but it is a total waste of ink and paper to continually argue about it. I believe it is what the agency does that makes it a civilian or citizen review board. In this regard, I will define citizen review as a governmental agency that handles public complaints against the police. And let me explain my choice of words for my definition. First, I use the word handle, and I put it in a close parenthesis, I believe, because I believe, or quotation mark, because I believe that complaints can be handled in a variety of ways. And the fact that it could be handled in a variety of ways means that there is a variation out there of citizen review board. Some boards merely do fact-finding. Others simply receive complaints and refer them to appropriate agencies. Few have full powers in handling cases from receipt of the complaint all the way up to the adjudication of cases. I also use the word public, fact-finding, in the definition to indicate that anyone can file complaints, so that even aliens who are here can file complaints to the Citizen Review Board, and that action is not necessarily reserved for local residents.
These models are classified
Finally, I use the word government because I believe that the board cannot effectively function without being attached to government.
Decisions are final and are
The board will not have the power to be able to go after a very powerful institution such as the police without the full force and resources of government behind it. So with that definition, I would like to move on and answer the next question about the different models of citizen review. These models are primarily developed by a scholar named Wayne Kerstetter, and these models are currently being utilized to classify citizen review boards in the United States. What are the different types of citizen review? There are primarily 3 models: civilian monitor, then you have a civilian review, and then you have what they call as a hybrid model. These models are classified according to their functional and structural independence from the police. What is a civilian monitor? Civilian monitor is the least powerful among the 3 models in terms of controlling the police. However, it is physically independent from the police. Its members are civilians, and the performance of its functions, even if limited, is not tainted with police participation. Most civilian monitors only functions as recipients of complaints. Sometimes they're given the power to review adjudicated cases or investigated cases. In some jurisdictions, civilian monitors simply serve as fact finders, but they have no power to render judgments on the case. The most powerful among these review or citizen review boards is what they call as a civilian review. It is one that has full powers. It receives complaints, investigates the case, adjudicates cases, renders judgments on the case. Now, sometimes the board's decisions are final and are anymore subjected to further review. It is also totally independent from the police department, both in form and in function. All of its members are civilians, and it performs all of its functions independently from the police. The hybrid is a combination model. It consists of the police and citizens or civilians working together in handling a case. There are 2 variations within this model. One is where the whole group convene, investigate a case, look at the merits of the case, renders decision collectively together. Okay. The other model is where they divide the functions of the board. And usually, most civilian review boards that has hybrid type delegates the investigation of cases to the police officers who are members of the board, and the adjudication of these cases are being handled by civilians. In most cases, receipt of complaints is being handled also by civilians. Overall, a hybrid model has the characteristic of what we call as interdependency, or a shared responsibility between the police and the citizens. Now, the next question is, what cities currently have civilian review boards? I would try to rephrase that question and instead ask, what is the state of citizen review in the United States? And this was the question that I tried to answer last summer of 2003 through a grant from IUSB. I basically went through almost 500 police departments throughout the country, 477 to be exact. And let me qualify that I only examined departments employing 100 police officers or more. I searched the internet, called city offices and police departments, and I have examined documents to find out if these departments have any form of citizen review. When I was doing this research, one of the most helpful resources that I found was the website of NACOL, or the National Association for the Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. NACOL has a database of citizen review boards all over the country. And after I examined NACOL's database, I was glad that I was right to include only departments with at least 100 officers. In their database, there was only one department with less than 100 officers that has a civilian review. And this was the Ventura Police Department in California. However, NACOL's count is way short of the estimate that was made by another professor whose name is Samuel L. Walker. Samuel L. Walker published a book which he called as Police Accountability, and he gave a very good account of the civilian review boards in the United States. Walker identified a little over 100, while NACOL has about 64 that they identified through their database. Why is there a disparity? This is not really an anomaly. First, NACOL only tallies information that is submitted to them. So it's a voluntary database that anybody who has a civilian review board can turn in their paperwork to them, and they will be counted as such. The submission is voluntary, so the NACOL database tend to undercount the civilian review boards in the United States. Samuel L. Walker, however, tends to overcount. Okay. And the reason for that is he included all kinds of citizen review, even single person agencies. He counted it as civilian review. And he even included state and county level civilian review boards. And that makes it more than what the current count is of the National Association for Citizen Oversight of Law Enforcement. With this disparity, I said, let me do my own counting, okay, and see if I can come up with something similar to that, or to their numbers. And I came up with 83. Okay. And the following were the major results of the study that I did about Citizen Review Board in the United States. One is that citizen oversight is relatively not used to control the police. Only 17.4% of departments all over the United States have citizen oversights. Internal affairs is still the most common type of control. I'll show you table 1, and this is the data of citizen oversight all over the United States divided by country. Those, it seems it's a small print, so here is a hard copy of what I'm presenting in front. And these are just the tables. I have limited copies for you, so if you want some more, please give me an email and I will send them to you through email. As you can see in the table, as I was saying, only 17% of all the departments that I have identified employing 100 or more officers have civilian or citizen oversights. The rest simply have internal affairs. The other finding that I had with civilian review is that civilian participation in the control of the police is very limited. Only 43% of states with citizen oversight prefer the civilian review model. The rest, which is 57%, have civilian monitor or a hybrid or some other form of oversight. Okay? So there's a lot of police participation in most of these civilian review mechanisms. Can you show table 2, please? Again, this is a small print, that's why I'm giving you the hard copy. And this is just the detail of what I just told you, that 43% of states have civilian review. The rest have civilian monitor, which is 35.5%. Other is, I can hardly read it myself, 5.3%, and a hybrid is 15.8%. Now, citizen oversights, the third one is that citizen oversight perform variety of functions. I want you to look at page 3, table 3 now. You need to adjust this a little bit. All right. As you can see, most of them have investigative powers, but very few of them has the power to subpoena or the power of subpoena, which means that they cannot compel. Most civilian review boards all over the country do not have the power to compel the presentation of witnesses, as well as the power to subpoena documents, which they call in legal parlance a subpoena ducis tecum. And that is one fallback of most civilian review boards in the United States. It has been found in several literature that the inability of civilian review boards to exercise subpoena powers severely handicaps them in their investigation of complaints against the police. Now, I have some details about the demographics of civilian review boards. See, researchers would like to divide their data so that they could have a more meaningful presentation, they say. As far as the regional grouping is concerned, there seems to be no region that is dominant, except that the Southwest or the West has more than the rest of the regions of the country, which is 10 to 8.9%. It's understandable sometimes because the Western territories are, it's to the right. Is that good?
That's right, that's great.
Now, can you see your paper?
Yeah, I can see it. It's the camera that I'm worried about.
Are you okay? Or is that too dark?
It's a little dark.
Just one up.
Just one.
The other one. Is that better? Is that better? Okay. All right. I may be discovered as a movie star, that's why I want a camera to be working. So, the West has has a lot of civilian review boards. When it comes to population, those cities with 100,000 to 500,000 have the most number of citizen review board, 52.2%. In terms of the number of police officers, those who have more tend to have more civilian oversight. 751 to 1,000 officers or more have 36.4 of percent of civilian oversight. Where does that place South Bend? 251. Okay, that's the next most number of civilian review board, 22.1%. As far as percent non-white, the relationship here, or the trend here, seems to be a curvy linear. Okay, in population areas where they have less than, say, 25% non-white, they have less civilian review boards or less citizen oversight. Most citizen oversights may be found in jurisdictions or cities where they have 26 to 50% or 51 to 75% non-white. And after you reach that percentage of 75%, the jurisdiction tend not to have, or to have a dwindling civilian review board mechanism, 10.6%. I already discussed the type of citizen oversight, and as I said, civilian review is only 43.4, while the rest has, together, they have about 57% other form of citizen oversight. Let's look at table 5. Yes?
Just to be clear, the percentages that we're showing are percentages of the identified civilian review boards, is that correct?
Those are percentages of, yes, where there is a civilian review board. Table 5. Okay. I divided the presentation or the numbers into what type of civilian review boards do they have depending on their geographic characteristics by region, by population, by number of police officers, and percent non-white. This is not going to change the overall data as I presented earlier because we just broke it down into several small segments. So the same conclusion can be said about the demographic information. The West will still have the most number. Those with 100,000 to 500,000 population will still dominate. Those with 250 or 100 officers will still have civilian review boards more than the others. I did a little magic with the numbers. I did a logistics regression, and I'm just going to go through this very quickly. Just to show you that when I tested the model of, I think percent non-white is going to have a significant impact on the creation of civilian review. And I said yes for, or 1 for yes, 0 for no. And what I found out was population or percent non-white was not really a significant factor in the creation of citizen review. What is more important, according to the statistical analysis that was done on the data, was the percent or the number of population that the city has. Okay. Therefore, the more population you have, there is the more tendency for you to create a citizen review board. And sometimes the more police officers you have, there is also a tendency to create a citizen review board, but the number did not show that it is a significant factor in the creation of civilian review.
It's not easy being green. Having to spend each day in the color of the leaves. When it could be nicer being red, yellow or gold. Something much more colorful like